everyone. It's January 12th, and I had this thought rolling through my head a couple weeks ago when John and I were talking, and I wanted to do a video on it, and then I forgot about it, and this morning it just popped back into my head again. So I thought, let me try to convey this. So if it's a little choppy, forgive me. Um, When I first started working with John, he gave me an assignment. He said, I want you to create a timeline, a graph with a timeline. First, you're going to figure out how old your part is and how emotionally impactful was that event on a scale of positive 10 to negative 10, and zero being, neutral. It didn't affect you badly or well. And so I sat down with piece of paper. Actually, it was some butcher paper because at that point, I don't know, I think I had 30 or 40 parts. And I started to do it with a marker to realize, no, I need to do this with pencil. So I started again. And then I got to have so many parts, I realized I need to put this on the computer in a real chart. So I'm going to show you what mine looked like. So here's what me at 5 year old was. Now, first, my first chart was just for my whole life. Then I did it by decade. I had six, because I'm 60 years old this year. I had six different charts and graphs. Well, then I realized, no, that's getting too crowded, too long, too big. And so if you look down here on the bottom left, you'll see that I have the different ages. So from 0 to 2 years old, or is this 3 years old, 4, and 5. And on the left is where you put the data in and you create the chart and it'll fill it out. So here I am at 5 years old. And so these lines here, because I was trying to make these numbers on the left larger so that you could see them, but I couldn't figure it out. Sorry about that. But the yellow line indicates 0. And like I said, John wanted me to make it from a positive 10 to a negative 10. Now, this dark brown line here is where my negative 10 is. And at a certain point, I realized, wow, these demonic experiences and being raped or whatever are much worse than a negative 10. The demonic influence really made it worse. So I took mine to a negative 20. And so everything below this dark brown line is demonic presence, influence, personal interaction, presence or influence in the environment. Then the next level down is personal involvement personally with me. Then the next level is seeing demonic possession in someone else. And the last bottom level is the attempted demonic possession of me. So, and John and I would go over it, and when I had only 20 or 30 or 40 parts, he explained to me what the purpose of this is. And he said, well, this just lets you see your life in a graphic form. He said, so when you have a positive experience up here in this top section above the yellow line, that whenever you have a positive experience, psychologically, you're going to feel as though the rug's going to be pulled out from under you because in your life, that's what has happened. You have a positive experience and then bam, you crash down here. And so you have this expectation that you can't really have positive experiences without paying for it somehow. John never said it that way, but that's how I see it. And so for all these weeks and months, I would show people this chart and graph and talk about that. And for me, what my parts get out of it when I add them onto the list, like this weekend, I added these three right here. And the names are Layla, Lakeland, and Lorelei. They like to see where they fit on the graph. They like to see, wow, Yeah, mine was pretty bad, but look, there was others that were worse. And it's not a comparison that they're going through. They like seeing it in the whole. And this is just 5 years old. But my parts like to see where they fall on the graph. And it's not just where they fall on the graph and how many other parts are at the same level as them, or even worse or better. It's visually stunning and shocking and enlightening to them to go, wow, there's this many parts just at 5 years old. There's this many of us. And I go, yeah. And I'll scroll through here and show them, yeah, here's 6 years old, 7 years old. There's so much trauma. We have two graphs. 6 and 7 both have two graphs. 8 years old, and I'll scroll through here and let them just see it. See, this is our life. It's my life, but it's our life now because they're co-conscious with me. But for them, they were isolated in their own little bubbles and prisons and thought they were the only ones that existed. And so what this does for me is it shows these parts that they're not alone, they're not isolated anymore, and that there's someone else at the same traumatic level as they are. And so they know who they can go talk to. Yeah, they can talk to anybody and everybody, but there's nothing like talking to someone who can relate to you, is at the same emotional impact as you. And as they get to know these parts that are at the same level as them, and start healing, and they talk about, yeah, we did this TED work and now we're up here, we're at like a zero impact. They go, wow, really? And you go, yeah. So that's what this chart and graph does for me and my parts. Now, Jon said something to me a few weeks ago. I was showing this to him, and I said that to him, my basic explanation, how I explained it to others. He says, well, that's true, but do you know what else it does? He's never told me this before in the year and a half we've been known each other. He said, well, it's the different levels of boundary crossing. And I went, oh my gosh, I had never thought about it like that. So I took this same chart and I moved it over here. Levels of boundary crossing. And I thought, well, what are those levels? Okay, you have a conscious level. Let me get that off of there, which is the 0 to 10. You're conscious of these things that happen. The subconscious level. Now, for me, these are memories that I've had that were confusing and I didn't really understand what they meant, but I've always remembered them. I always remembered my dad kicking me in the stomach at the lake, but I didn't know why, how it came about. But so that's subconscious. Or I always remember being a crossing guard in grade school. I never thought anything about it. I thought, oh, it's just something I did. Well, now I understand why I did it because here's the crossing guard part right there, Ensley. I'll blow this up a little. Crossing guard part that came right after three parts that were MK Ultra parts. So after they instilled my MK Ultra programming, then they wanted me to be a crossing guard. They wanted to see if I could follow their directions or if someone approached me as I'm walking them across the street and they said different words and signals to me if I responded. That's why they wanted me to be a crossing guard, because my feeling about the whole business was I don't want to be a crossing guard. And then the next thing they did was, oh no, that's not Ensley. It's another part that's at a zero. My mistake. Another part at 10 years old. Where is it? It's the zero right here, Elara. That's the crossing guard part, right? So I realized that, oh, after the MK Ultra, they test you along the way to make sure the MK Ultra is sitting in there properly, that it's working, right? So conscious, subconscious, things that you remember, but you really don't have much else, something that's not terrifying or whatever. Then below that is the repressed level. This is conscious is from 0 to 10. Subconscious is -1, -2. Repressed is -3 to -6. So you have the repressed level next. It's a more impactful emotional event. You know, you were not raped, but let's say that you were, having some sort of torture or public humiliation with being naked, something like that. Below that level is from -7 and -10 would be the wounded child level. You're tortured, you're raped, you're just hurt pretty bad. It's a wounded child. And for me, there was a level below that because of the satanic ritual abuse and the spiritual realm aspect of it, where there was demonic influence, which I explained just a little bit ago. So here's your this these are levels of boundary crossing that a perpetrator will commit. And I'm going to go to the next chart. It's the exact same chart, but I added some stuff to it. So again, same chart and the levels. Again, the same chart, same levels. I just took off the consciousness level. And I got to thinking, well, how Jon was talking about how when you from the 0 to 10, these are reasonable relationships. They're normal and healthy. There's no boundary crossing. From 0 to 3 is an unreasonable relationship. These are the narcissists, the pigs and the dogs, the people in love with themselves. Then you get into the toxic relationships where you're interacting with a sociopath. And I'll get into these zones in a moment with a different with a different PowerPoint. And below that, you have dangerous and life-threatening, which applies to -7 and -20, because if someone is raping you or torturing you or whatever, you've got demonic possession happening or spirits or evil, wicked stuff, that's dangerous and life-threatening if you don't toe the line, right? Or you might just plain out be the victim. It's dangerous and life-threatening. So this chart and graph teaches you boundary crossing. Now, I also will have Jon Uhler's series on on boundaries is going to be playing side by side with this every Friday. I think there's 20 or 30 of them. Um, so I wanted to get into, well, how can you figure out what's reasonable, unreasonable, toxic, dangerous, and life-threatening, and the boundary crossing? And like I said, I'll get into these zones in a second. How do you figure that out? Well, I understood it when I watched Jon Uhler's uh, forgiveness series, boundary series, and when he talked about sexual predators and sadistic sexual predators. And so he and I together, we took his charts and graphs, and I took certain information off different ones and put it together so that people can understand. Now, I know that there's a lot going on here, and so I'm going to break it down. Now, Jon will always start off with, he'll say, as goes, how do you create a predator? How do you create a, a sadistic person, right? So he says, as goes conscience, so goes the ego. And then goes empathy with it, a person's intentions, what their goals are, their approaches to boundaries, and the stages of objectification of others. And then on the side, left side over here is the psychiatric diagnosis is this area, and the relationship, reasonable, unreasonable, toxic, dangerous, and life-threatening. So think about an individual in your life, or think about yourself and your conscience. Okay? So first we'll get into the relationships on the left. Reasonable relationships, unreasonable relationships, toxic, dangerous, and life-threatening, as I mentioned a moment ago. So we'll go into the psychiatric diagnosis of that. You've got normal and healthy up here on the top left in the blue. As you slide down that slope, then you get a little abnormal, and if you keep sliding down that slope, you move into narcissism. There's where personality disorders are created. And you slide down that slope some more, then the sociopath comes into play. Now, this is all within the same person. And you slide down that slope some more, and you move in the psychopathy, the psychopath category, dangerous and life-threatening relationships. The sociopath creating toxic relationships. The narcissist, unreasonable relationships, right? Now, here's what I'm going to the zones, the danger zone, the twisting zone, the inversion zone. What are these? These are as you slide down the slope with your conscience, with your mental, emotional, spiritual self. Okay? So what is that? What does that look like? The danger zone. That is where you are comfortable and acclimating to the violation of your conscience. Your conscience, let's say you kick a dog. And you hear that little voice in the back of you says, well, what the heck did I do that for? I shouldn't do that. Let me go check on that. Let me never do that again. I don't like myself doing that, right? You have a conscience. You can hear it. You're listening to it. Well, you're comfortable and acclimating to violating your conscience. Well, you might hear that in your head go, no, I'm not going to hear that. I'm not going to listen to that. You're violating your conscience. You've become morally compromised. You're morally, you know that's wrong. You know other people are going to think that's wrong, but you've just compromised yourself. You are not going to change your ways at all, right? And you're going to suppress the truth. Someone comes up to you and says, I saw you kick that dog. And you say, I don't know what you're talking about. Walk away. Suppression of the truth. That's the danger zone. Well, if you slide down that slope, you'll move into the twisting zone. Now, this is where you keep violating your conscience more and more and more. And now you're going to actively harmonize with the morals of evil slash Satan, not the values and morals of God, because at some point in you know that kicking that dog or hurting another person or stealing is not right. It's against the morals of God, but Satan is okay with that. You're okay with being evil. And if you slide down that slope even more, you're in the inversion zone. You keep doing that more and more and more, and you enjoy it, now you've moved into the inversion zone where it's the permanent moral inversion of right and wrong. You think you're kicking that dog and it gives you a thrill. Even though people might come after you and say, hey, stop doing that, blah, blah, blah. You don't care, you get a thrill out of it. Your conscience is permanently and gladly overridden. Now, I want to show you a visual so that you can understand this a little better. The danger, here's Niagara Falls, right? The danger zone. That is the, you're comfortable and acclimating to the violation of your conscience. Now, I want you to think about this in terms of the current. Back here in the danger zone, you might have a current. And maybe you can go swimming over there in a safe little cove or something. There's a little bit of a current, but it's not, you can feel it. That's your conscience talking to you, but it's not overtaking you, overpowering. You can hear your conscience and you're probably self-correcting. If you start to wander out here, maybe into this area where the current's a little stronger, your conscience says, I don't think you should go out there any further. And so you turn back and go into the safer area. You correct your behavior, right? But let's say your ego is so big, your conscience, you know what? I'm big, bad, and whatever. That current's not such a big deal. So you move into the twisting zone, right? You ignore you're violating your conscience that said, hey, don't go out there. And you're going to suppress the truth even to yourself. Hey, this current's not. So now you can feel the current. It's stronger. You got to do a little bit of work, but you're not getting swept away. So you're thinking, okay, I'm okay, I'm okay. And so you fart around and you're playing out here in the twisting zone with that current that's getting stronger, and you don't realize that it's pulling you a little bit further down, a little bit further down, a little bit further down because you're so focused on yourself and having a good time and being a badass because you can be in this area. Now all of a sudden, unbeknownst to you, you have moved so far along. You're now in the inversion zone where that current is so strong, you're having to fight against it. You're having to really put some effort out to not be pulled down that river, right? But but between the twisting zone and the inversion zone, that's where you can feel the current, and you're so focused on yourself and what you want to do, you don't realize it's pulling you down to this inversion zone. Now the current is too strong for you to fight back against, and you have become swept up in it. You're swept up in it. And this is the point of no return. You cannot swim against it. You cannot fight against it. No matter how much of a badass you think you are, you're just done. This is the point of no return. And you're going to be swept over the edge, which, death, spiritual death, judgment, and the abyss, because you ignored your conscience, right? So let's look at that. We'll go back to this chart here. On the left, you've got the types of relationships, the psychiatric diagnosis that goes with it, and the different zones that you're going to go through. So here's the slippery slope in terms of your conscience. First, you start off up here with an active conscience. Your mom and dad tell you when you're 2 or 3 years old and you're in the sandbox with somebody else and you take their toy away from them, and your parents, no, you can't take that. That's someone else's. It doesn't belong to you, and you might throw a fit and pout, but they teach you along the way what's right, what's morally right and wrong. So you're like, oh, so after a while you figure out, no, I can't take people. You have an active conscience. No, I cannot take other people's things. But you slide down a slope. You're in that water in your current. Now, this could relate to the people you have surrounding you, your peer group. Let's say in grade school, junior high, high school. Well, maybe one of your friends wasn't taught that, or they were taught it, but not as strongly as your parents taught you. Well, now your conscience is tender. You'll hear it. You kind of don't want to, but you hear it and you're tender to it, right? Slide down that slope. Again, the people surrounding you or other people can affect you. Now your conscience, you're sensitive to it. You can hear it still. Maybe you do or don't listen to it, but you can hear it. You know better, right? You slide down that so you're responsive. It's responsive to you. You're receptive of it. You're sliding down that slope. So you got people around you that are not this way. And so you're thinking, wow, oh, I don't know why I'm listening to my conscience because these people don't. So now you're crossing that danger zone. You think you can cross out from that safe little cove or inlet, whatever it is on Niagara Falls, and move out there into the stronger water. No, it's not sweeping you away, and you don't really have to fight too much. Well, that's where your conscience becomes sluggish. Now you may or may not hear it. If you hear it, it's sluggish. You slide down that slope some more. Now you're becoming resistant to it because you're hanging out with your buddies in junior high or high school, and well, they want to smoke dope in the bathroom, and it's the cool thing to do. So you're going to resist your conscience, right? You do that long enough, all through junior high, you wind up in high school, and you're desensitized to it. Nobody cares, right? So now you're approaching that twisting zone where you're in the current, where you can feel it, and it's slowly moving you down, and you're unaware of it. And you're moved into now this twisting zone where the currents become much stronger. You have to fight against that current. You need to try to get back up to that calmer water, right? So you've crossed into the twisting zone where you're actively harmonizing with the morals of evil and Satan, your friends, your buddies, your pals who are smoking weed in the bathroom, and now let's go swipe so and so's money out of his jacket pocket so we can buy some more. We don't have to spend our own money, right? Now your ego, your conscience has become inflexible and hardened. Well, my friends aren't worried about stealing money, and it's all about getting high, and that's fun. And so, inflexible conscience, hardened conscience, and now you're apostate to it, which means you might hear your conscience, but you're going to fight against it. You're going to push against it because you want to get high, right? You want to do the thing you want to, you're going to push against your conscience. You're no longer sensitive to it or responsive to it. You're pushing against it. You're apostate to it. Well, once that happens, you cross the inversion zone, and this is a zone where the current is so strong you can't swim against it anymore. You're swept up in it. And think about this in terms of your circle of friends and the people in your life. Well, now you've crossed that inversion, and this is the permanent moral inversion of right and wrong. Your conscience is permanently and gladly overridden because you've done nothing for years but push your conscience away, right? So now you've become reprobate. You have changed. You have forever changed. It's that permanent moral inversion. And what do I mean by that? What is reprobate? Permanent. How does that happen? Well, it's like alchemy in terms of your heart, your mind, your soul, your thinking. It's when an alchemist takes a piece of metal and puts so much heat on it, metalworking, right? Or so much cold onto a piece of crystal or glass that it changes that object. The metal is melted. It's no longer that metallic rock, it's molten. It's permanently changed. Or the glass that you put so much cold on, right? Or let's put it like this, freezing cold piece of glass in your car in the winter, you flip the defrost on, and that heat cracks the glass, right? That's an alchemical response. It's forever changed. The same thing happens to us in our bodies. When we eat food, that food doesn't go in and come out in its same form. It's changed once it's taken into your body. It's changed into vitamins, minerals, nutrients, all those things that feed into your blood system, your nervous system, either for health or not for health, depending on what you're eating. It's an alchemical change. The same thing happens with your conscience. If you keep turning it off and ignoring it and pushing it away, desensitized, and literally pushing back against it, and continue on in that way. You're in the Niagara Falls, you are in the current you can no longer fight against. You are permanently changed and you are swept up into that water. right? Approaching the fall. So what happens in your conscience? Well, now you reprobate, you're forever changed. Your conscience has become atrophied. It's shrinking. It's calloused. It's hardened all over. It's cauterized. Means you've cut it off so many times and the ends are cauterized, right? Now it's calcified, completely hardened. Keep sliding down that flow. Now it's petrified. And finally, at the bottom, your conscience becomes fossilized. It just doesn't even exist to you. So you go from a soft, active, tender, sensitive conscience over time, depending on who you surround yourself with, sliding down that slope, being led by example, or perhaps not, you're just sliding down that slope all the way at the bottom, your conscience becomes fossilized. It gets harder and harder and more separate and more foreign to you. It's fossilized down here. You've gone past the point of no return in this red area. So, like John says, as goes conscience, so goes the ego. So let's look at that next. Your ego. Now, keep in mind from left to right, these things go along with each other. So your conscience is active, it's tender, it's sensitive, responsive, you're receptive to it. Your ego, you're humble. You're like, oh my gosh, you accidentally kicked a dog and you're down there trying to make sure your baby's okay, right? Oh my gosh, how could I have done such a thing? You're humble. Slide down that slope some more depending on who you're surrounding yourself with. Well, you're self-correcting. This might be elementary school or junior high where you see people are doing things they shouldn't, and maybe you did something you shouldn't have, but you're like, you know what? I don't feel good about that. I'm not going to do that anymore. Maybe I shouldn't hang out with this person anymore, right? But let's say you don't come to that sleep and you think, oh man, this person's so cool. I just want to hang out with them. I want to be part of the cool club, the popular kids. Well, you slide down that slope with your ego and you've crossed the danger zone. The current is now pulling at you. Now your ego, your conscience is sluggish, resistant, desensitized because you want to do what you want to do. Your ego, you're selfish, you're self-centered. I want to be part of the cool kids. I want to be in the popular club. And this is what the popular club does, right? So you're sliding down the slope with your conscience because you're sluggish to it, desensitive. Your ego moves with it. You're selfish and self-centered. Well, what happens if you continue down that road and the current is slowly, you're unawares, but it's slowly pulling you into that current that you can't ignore anymore, right? You can't fight against. You cross the twisting zone. You're actively harmonizing with the morals of evil or Satan and not the values and morals of God and good. Well, now you're self-absorbed. You're self-promoting. You're part of the Mean Girls Club. You're popular and everybody loves you. And, they taught you how to do your hair and your makeup so that you're pretty. And you're absorbed in being a part of that group, part of those people, right? You've gone past the twisting zone. You know that you shouldn't be a mean girl, but your conscience, you've become inflexible to it, hardened to it, and you're pushing back against it. I know I shouldn't do that, but you know what? These guys do it. They're okay with it. I'm just going to push all that away. I'm pushing against what my conscience is telling me. Self-absorbed, self-promoting. Look at me. Look how cool I am. Look how pretty I am. I have every right to be mean to you, right? So you're sliding down that slope. Sliding down the slope is being moved by the current. And the current are the people you surround yourself with, or that you are born into and are surrounded by, right? So now the current has moved you. You're sliding down the slope, and now you're crossing the inversion zone because you've pushed back against your conscience and you have turned, you have changed. You reprobate that alchemical change, and you've embraced it. You've embraced pushing pushing against your conscience, ignoring your conscience. You don't care because you want what you want, right? You're self-absorbed, you're self-promoting, you're crossing the inversion zone, the point of no return. Well, now you're self-entitled. I have every right to be a mean girl. I have every right to do what I'm doing because I'm entitled to it. Now, survivors out there, you could think of this in terms of perpetrators who are under the age of 10, right? You've got the son of a perpetrator, and they're training him how to be a perpetrator and training him how to rape you. He's entitled to that. Along the way, along in his life, his conscience, when he felt bad about something, he probably got smacked. So don't feel bad about doing that. Don't feel wrong about that. This is what we do because his parents are already in the inversion zone and they're training him how to get into the inversion zone. So they're acknowledging him when he's selfish and self-centered and self-absorbed and self-promoting. And his ego is going to be telling his conscience, hey, I don't have to listen to you. My parents say, my cult says, right? So you cross the inversion zone. So they're now entitled, self-entitled, self-aggrandizing, right? They're showing you just how awesome they are. Look at me. I'm a god. I can do this to you. Or the mean girls in school or in the cult, right? Self-aggrandized, self-righteous, and self-justifying. Think about the perpetrators out there, or even government officials, or just bad people all over. The royalty, they are entitled, they aggrandize themselves, they're self-righteous, they justify what they do. This is where perpetrators are because they have turned off their conscience or were taught to do so, right? So, as goes conscience, so goes the ego. Well, what's the next area to look at? That's empathy. Empathy, as your conscience goes, your ego goes, your empathy goes with it. So, what is this top level of empathy here? Deep transformational empathy. I think for me, this is my relationship with God. That, yeah, I'm going to do unto others as others do unto me, or do not do unto others as I don't want them to do to me, etc. But this is where God says, you know what? You're in a profession that is unhealthy for you, not good for you. And as your relationship develops with God, you realize, you know what? I might make a lot of money doing this, but I can't do this anymore. And God wants you to quit your job, go be a farmer or a preacher or a healer. You have a calling and you hear it. Your conscience, for me, conscience is God talking to me. That's what I believe the conscience is. That still, small, quiet voice of God talking to me. That's the highest level. So sliding down that slope, you're compassionate to other people when they're in pain or hurting or upset. You're there. You have compassion for them. You don't want other people to hurt. You may even want to try to help them out, right? Make them feel better. Sliding down that slope with your conscience. It's no longer active, tender. Now you're responsive and receptive to it, and you have affect empathy. Well, what is that? Affect empathy is someone who has so much empathy that they can't separate out feeling others' pain from their own. It all gets merged up and confused. Sliding down that slope. When you do something wrong or hurt someone, you have remorse about it. You feel bad, right? sliding down that slope, your conscience, you're still receptive to your conscience. Like, oh my gosh, I've hurt someone, I've offended someone, I've inadvertently taken something. You regret it. And you realize, I better give that back, right? I don't know why this example is popping up, but I used to have this attitude when I was interacting with different stores and stuff where you're at the drive-through and they give you back too much change. And it's real easy to do when you're in a drive-through. Is they give you back too much, you get extra 5 or extra 10 back. And I think, well, you know what? These corporations have, kind of screwed us over our whole life. I'm going to take my little bonus here, my little $5 or $10, and take off. I was not listening to my conscience because now when I hear my conscience says, you know what, Diana? You've been in the retail industry and food service, and you know if your drawer is short, you get written up. And if that happens 3 times, you are fired. I don't want to get someone in a situation where they get written up or fired because maybe they were preoccupied and gave me too much change. My conscience now, my ego, I will self-correct and listen to my conscience. I'll say, you know what, you gave me too much money and I give it back. I regret that I ever did that, right? So you feel bad about it, remorse, your conscience, your ego is self-correcting and you hear your conscience. I would say this blue zone is where you can hear God, right? But let's take empathy down past the danger zone. How does your empathy change with your sluggish, resistant, desensitized conscience and your selfish and self-centered ego? Well, your now your empathy is localized. Well, what does that mean? That means that you have empathy for people that are close to you only. It's localized. Someone, your husband, a wife, a child, maybe a close coworker. It's localized. You don't have empathy for that guy in the drive-through window because you don't know him. You don't care about him. You're selfish and self-centered. You want that extra 5 or 10 bucks, right? That's all you care about. Your empathy is localized. Now, if your coworker gives you too much change back, you're probably likely to give it back to them right away because your empathy is localized, right? Sliding down that slope some more. Well, now you're indifferent. So maybe now your coworker, they go out and get you lunch, bring you back, give you $5 too much change back. You're like, you know what? They can't keep track of money. I'm indifferent to it. I'm desensitized to my conscience. I'm self-centered. I want that extra $5. I'm going to go out and get a lotto ticket with that $5, right? You're indifferent even to your friends, people close to you. Well, now we're going to cross that twisting zone. What happens with your empathy? Well, now you have a disregard for others. You're harmonizing with the morals of evil and Satan, not the values and morals of God. So someone else could be in pain. Your empathy, you have a disregard for them. Oh, you crashed your car, too bad. You have a disregard for them. Or let's say your coworkers, maybe a mother or father died and they have to take a week off and go on to grieve, to go to the funeral. Well, you have a disregard and maybe slide down that slope, so a disdain for them because now you got to work more shifts or do more work because your coworker's gone. Your ego, you're self-absorbed in what you have to do. You're self-promoting. You don't want to do any extra work. You have a disdain for that person instead of compassion that their mom or dad died. You have a disdain for them because it's going to put more work on your plate because they're gone, right? Now think about this in terms of SRA. A perpetrator is raping someone and you see that person crying. in pain, screaming. They have a disdain for you. They don't care. They want to promote themselves. They need to do this ritual so they can climb the satanic ladder, right? Distinct. So let's slide down that slope some more with empathy. Now you cross the inversions on the point of no return. You have a moral inversion of right and wrong. Your conscience is permanently and gladly overridden. You're going to slide down that slope. What happens with your empathy? You have cognitive empathy. What does that mean? That means okay, your friend's mom or dad died, and they ask you to go to the funeral or invite you to the funeral. And you're thinking, I don't want to go. I don't want to go to this sad, awful, horrible place. But because you need or want something from this person, or you know you have to work with them some more, or you're in the cult, and you know you got to deal with that person. You're like, wow, okay, I guess I'll go. I'm obligated. So they will pretend to be sad. They'll pretend to have empathy for you. They'll put on a face, oh, and they pretend. It's not genuine compassion or empathy for you, but they will pretend. They're very good actors. So let's slide down that slope some more for they're going to pretend because they're self-entitled. They know that they need or want something from you. Their conscience has been atrophied and calloused and cauterized, right? Sliding down this, now they have a self-interest. If they have a self-interest in in wanting or needing something from you, they will pretend to have empathy for you. But if they have a self-interest in something else, they're not going to pretend. They are not going to care, right? Self-interest, their empathy is self-interest only. If they know that they can keep you on their good side, they'll go with you to that funeral. They'll pretend, right? Or a handler. They'll pretend if it's in their interest to climb the satanic ladder or be of good standing in the cult, they'll pretend to you and go with you and do this thing with you that's hurtful to you, right? Self-interest. Their empathy is surrounding their self-interest. What am I going to get out of this? To pretend. So let's slide down that slope some more. Now their empathy is minimal because their conscience is now calcified and petrified. They are self-aggrandizing, self-righteous. Minimal empathy, minimal. And sliding down that slope some more, an absence of empathy. They now have a fossilized conscience. They're self-justified in doing what they're doing, and they feel nothing for anyone else except themselves. No empathy. So let's go into the next category. How do their intentions line up with their empathy, their ego, and their conscience? So their intentions, up at the top in the blue area, you have an active, tender, sensitive conscience. You're humble. You're trying to do. You can feel other people's pain. You're compassionate. You might be wanting to try to move towards Christianity and doing what God wants you to do instead of your ego. And let's say you do something that hurts someone else and you might be unaware of it. You may have been brought up using a slur, a racial slur, and we're so unaware of it. And now you're with people who are good people. You're surrounding yourself with good people, and you say this word, and you see people are thinking, "Oh my God, what just happened?" And a friend will say, "Well, you don't say that word. It's offensive to these people." You're like, holy cow. You have empathy. You can feel their pain. You regret it. You're remorseful of offending people. You self-correct with your ego and your conscience. You say, wow, I'm going to be responsive to this and sensitive to it, and not do that ever again. Holy cow. kick yourself in the butt, right? Self-correcting. Or maybe you did something unintentionally, right? Maybe when you were somewhere, you picked up your coat, and along the way, someone else's gloves were in your sleeve, and it's across your arm, and you unintentionally did something, and it's discovered, and you're like, "Holy crap! No, I didn't mean to do that." You regret, you're remorseful, you feel bad, you correct yourself. Look, of course, here, have them back, right? We'll slide down that slope from unaware and unintentional. Now you're just distracted. Your kids are pulling at your sleeve and, come on, mom, hurry up. And you didn't realize that, maybe one of your kids at the grocery store threw a pack of bubble gum in your grocery bag, and you were unaware. You were distracted or preoccupied. And you get home and you realize, oh my gosh, who put this in here? I didn't pay for that. We just stole this pack of gum. And you're going to teach your kids to be remorseful and to regret it and to correct their behavior. And you're going to go into their conscience and say, look, it's not good to steal, right? The blue zone, self-correction. Even if you're distracted or preoccupied, if something happens, or if you're just so busy, right? We're going to cross into the danger zone where you're comfortable and acclimating to the violation of your conscience. There's moral compromise, and you're going to suppress the truth. Well, now here your intentions, you're self-absorbed and you're self-indulgent. You might be so self-indulged or self-absorbed that when you unpack the groceries, you don't even notice the gum that's there that your kids took. So you don't even have the opportunity to correct their behavior. Or if you do notice it, you're so self-absorbed, you're like, you know what, I don't have time to talk to them about this. They should know better. I'm absorbed. I'm indulging in myself. I want to hurry up and go take a bubble bath or put on my show. You know what? I don't care. Let the kids do what they're going to do, right? So the kids don't get the right correction. Their conscience and ego are going to start sliding down the slope along with yours. So, self-absorbed, self-indulgent. Now we're going to cross the twisting zone where the current's pulling you along and you can't fight against it anymore. It's pulling you towards the falls. Well, now you're self-entitled and you have a willful disregard for others. You're entitled to that pack of gum because you get ripped off by so many companies and corporations, and the government does this and that. My reasoning at the fast food place, right? I'm entitled to that extra $5. I don't care that that cashier might get written up or fired, right? Or it might cross my mind and go, yeah, but it's too late for me to go back and give him the $5, whatever, right? That's a willful disregard where the thought goes through my mind, oh my gosh, that cashier might get written up because I don't feel bad. I'm self-entitled to that $5. A willful disregard for that cashier that might get written up, or your kids. You have a willful disregard for teaching them right and wrong, that you're not willing to take that extra 5 minutes and scold them over stealing. And the next, or drive back to the store and have your kid present the manager the pack of gum that he stole and shame that child and let them know, hey, this is not cool. You have a willful disregard for teaching your children right from wrong because you have a disdain for the government or corporations. You might even have a disdain for your children because you're self-absorbed and self-promoting, and your ego and your conscience has become inflexible, hardened, or apostate. You're pushing back against it. And in the satanic cult, this is those people who feel entitled to hurt you, have an absolute willful disregard for any pain, humiliation, embarrassment that you might be experiencing. They have slid down the slope with their intentions. They're going to hurt you because it makes them feel good or they get something out of it. And let's cross this line, the inversion zone, the permanent moral inversion of right and wrong. Your conscience is permanently and gladly overridden. Well, now you're just calculating. Now you're calculating, what can I do? How can I do it to get what I want? I want to climb the ladder. I want more money. People in the music industry or whatever got to have to sell their soul to get up the ladder, right? Or any of these positions. They're going to calculate, how can I screw over my coworker to make myself look good and them look bad? So I can climb the ladder and they can't. I've had coworkers like that where they would take, they're closing the store at the end of the night, just one manager, but take your people from your department along with their people and clean up their department and leave your department looking like crap. So you can look bad and they can look good. That's calculating, sliding down that slope because they don't care how you feel. They have a self-interest, right? Their empathy, they're in self-interest. They have a malice and forethought about this. They're calculating, thinking about it, and being malicious. Well, so and so has the boss thinks of them better than me. How can I make them look bad and make myself look good? Right? I think that's what happens between cult members because they're all evil. How can I make them look bad or weak or whatever? Or how can I walk all over them and make myself shine and look good? Right? So they cross, you're calculating, malicious, and forethought. Now they're just vindictive and sadistic. So if you're up there in the blue zone and they're down here in the red zone and you're unaware, you just think your friend is doing things that are mean, pushing your buttons, and you can't understand it. I don't understand why they're doing that. They're being vindictive and mean to me. And I've not done anything. I'm compassionate with them. I'm sensitive with them. I'm always nice with them, right? You might be in a relationship with a husband or a wife who you go out of your way to help them, build them up, pump them up, and they do nothing but pick at you, push your buttons. They're vindictive with you. You do something inadvertently or mistakenly, or you might even do something right, but because they want to break you down, they're vindictive with you and sadistic. This would be domestic violence. How dare you present me my dinner warm instead of hot? And a backhand across the face, right? Or in a satanic ritual, not a whole lot to say there because they're just sadistic, period. Sliding down that slope with their intentions. Now they crave and seek evil. They have an absence of empathy. They're self justifying, self righteous in their ego, and their conscience is petrified and fossilized. These things move together from left to right. You cannot have an active, tender, sensitive conscience and crave and seek evil. It just doesn't work. If you are in this bottom red zone in any area, all of you moves with it. As you slide down the slope in one area, the others follow. So let's move forward into goals. How do goals play into this? Okay, up at the top in the blue, you have an active, tender conscience. Your ego is humble. You talk with God. You're compassionate with other people. You want to fulfill God's will to make the world a better place. If you do something you're unaware or unintentioned of it, your goals are to fulfill God's divine values, to make the world a better place, to point out evil, call out evil, to defend the people who are being oppressed. But let's say your conscience is not that active or tender. You're sensitive, responsive, receptive. You're self-correcting. You're still empathetic. You can feel for others. Maybe you feel too much. But if you do something because you're distracted or preoccupied or unintentionally, you regret it, you have remorse, you correct it. You slide down the slope with goals. Okay, maybe now you're not about fulfilling God's purpose for you, but you want to help empower others. Let me give you a job. Let me teach you how to do this job right. Let me give you a paycheck so that you can support your family and have a better life. You want to empower others. Or if not that, maybe you want to be a tutor or a mentor to someone and teach them the Bible, right? You slide down there. Maybe you're not at that part yet, and you practice the golden rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. You're not going to hurt someone else because you don't want them to hurt you. You're not going to steal someone out from someone because you don't want them to steal from you, right? Those are your goals. Well, let's cross the danger zone where you're comfortable and acclimating to the violation of your conscience. You are morally compromised and suppressing the truth. Wow, your conscience is sluggish, resistant, desensitized. You're selfish and self centered. Your empathy is for only someone close to you, or you're even indifferent to that. You're self absorbed, self indulgent. I'm doing me, right? So now my goals are self satisfaction, to manipulate others, to deceive others. You know, I think about this, the Kardashians. I remember hearing Kim Kardashian say once, I'm doing me. And I heard her mom say to her, you do you, Kim. Because she wanted what she wanted. She was going to manipulate people to get what she wanted or deceive. This would be, a coworker shorting a drawer on purpose. As managers, you're counting the drawers and setting up another manager to look bad. Deception, suppression of the truth, deception, manipulating circumstances and events. In the cult, what would this look like? Well, just basically your handler lying to you, deception, manipulating you for his own self-satisfaction because he's absorbed in what he wants. He's self-indulgent in his intentions. He's indifferent to what you feel. His ego is selfish and self-centered. He's doing him. The conscience is sluggish, resistant, desensitized. Well, let's slide down that slope some more with goals. You cross a twisting zone. You're actively harmonizing with the morals of evil and Satan, not the values and morals of God. You're pushing back against it. The current is 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 pulling you down this slippery slope. Well, now your goals are to steal from others their time, their effort, their energy, their resources, to blemish them, make them look bad, to tarnish them, literally physically harm them, bruise their heart, their soul, their mind, or to ruin them, ruin their career. I'm reminded here of the slander campaign against John. Those people want to ruin him with their slander. They're self entitled. They have a willful disregard for John and the people that John's helping. They have a disdain for him. They're self promoting and self absorbed. They're all about the LGBTQ community. That's all they care about. Their conscience is inflexible, hardened, and they are pushing back against it. They are apostate to it. They are trying to ruin John. And how does this look in a satanic ritual? If you start talking, go to the police or a shrink, they're going to ruin you, make you go insane, trigger your programming for you to go insane, right? Their goals are to now ruin you, steal, blemish, tarnish, ruin. Well, let's cross that line. where you cannot fight against the current anymore. You're sliding over the edge of that waterfall. You have a permanent moral inversion of right and wrong. There has been an alchemical change in you. You think that doing the wrong thing is correct, and you think that doing the godly thing is wrong. There is an inversion. There has been an alchemical change in your conscience, your ego, your empathy, your intentions, your heart, your mind, your soul. You are aligning with, in the twisting zone, you were harmonizing with evil, but now you're not just harmonizing with it, you are evil. Your conscience is permanently and gladly overridden. Well, now your goals are to impact others in a negative way, to harm them, to damage them. And I'm not just talking about physically, I'm talking physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual, to impact, harm, damage, and destroy. As SRA and MKU survivors, we understand that this is what is being done to a victim. You're being impacted, life-changing impact, harm, life-changing harm, damage, life-changing damage to emotionally, spiritually, and destroy you, if not kill you, destroy you, but to just destroy any piece of God within you. And in terms of a coworker or a relationship, this is the domestic violence. This is the belittling, mocking, beating of your spouse or a child. These things don't just happen in satanic rituals or abuse. Well, yeah, I would say anything in this red zone is abuse. And the pink up here, this light purple, whatever you want to call it, the twisting zone, steal, blemish, tarnish, ruin a human being is bad enough, but to impact them negatively, harm, damage, and destroy. You are a psychopath if you're doing that. So let's move into the approaches to boundaries, where I started this video off with the other chart. I'll throw that up here real quick. Approach at levels of boundary crossing. When you're doing your SRA work and you're figuring out, is it a +3, a -3, a -8, a -17? You can understand the psychology of where your perpetrator is at and how it affected you on the conscious level, the subconscious level, the repressed level, the wounded child level, or the sadistic and demonic level. What type of person it takes to put you at that level, your abuse moment, that split, that personality is at a -17. Only someone in this psychopath range could or would do that. So let's go into approaches to boundaries. Up here in the blue zone, your conscience, active, tender, sensitive, your humble, self-correcting ego. You have empathy for others, remorse and regret. Your intentions, you're unaware, or what you do something unintentional, you're distracted or preoccupied. Your goals are to harmonize with God's purpose, to empower others, to fulfill the golden rule. Well, you're loving in your boundaries. Someone says, don't do that. You don't. You stop. You're loving to them. You're thoughtful about them. And they may not even ask you, but you may notice that whenever you do that particular thing, it bothers them. You see them get tense. You go, wow, maybe I shouldn't do that anymore. You're thoughtful. If you do cross a boundary, it's inadvertently. You're not aware because you might be distracted or preoccupied, right? sliding down that slope with boundaries. Well, now you're just, it was inadvertent, but now you're just thoughtless or careless because you're distracted or preoccupied or busy. And you're not taking the time to self-correct your ego and listen to your conscience. You're not responding to it or receptive to it as you should be. You're not correcting yourself. Now you're thoughtless and careless. I know that they would really like me to stop doing that, but you know what? I'm just so busy. I don't have the time, effort, or I don't have the time to put into that. You're thoughtless and careless. Well, slide down that slope. Now you're just rude. You're just rude. You don't care that you're crossing a boundary because you're preoccupied, because you're distracted. You're ignoring the golden rule. You're not self-correcting your ego. You're not listening to your conscience. Maybe it's because you're busy. And maybe once you're not busy anymore, oh, you can catch your breath. Someone says, hey, when you were busy, you were really darn rude to me. You go, oh my God, I didn't even realize. I'm so sorry, right? Well, let's slide down that slope. Let's cross the danger zone where you go from the cove where there's a tiny, tiny little current, and now you can feel the current. You can still, you don't really have to fight against it, but you can feel the current pulling you down. Well, now your approach is to boundary. You're crossing boundaries purposefully and willfully because you realize that, wow, when I push her button and I'm rude, she goes off half cocked. And when she does, I can blame her for being crazy and stupid. And I'm off the hook because she's losing it, right? Y'all ever experienced that in an argument with someone? They push your buttons, you get upset and shout back, and now they can be self-righteous and justified. See, look, you're unstable, you're emotionally dysregulated, and make you wrong when they have purposefully and willfully crossed your boundaries. And that's why you're going off because you told them to stop doing that, but they're doing it, right? Because they want to satisfy, they have a self-satisfaction. If their goals, they want to manipulate you, deceive you. Their intentions are, I'm doing me. I'm self-indulgent. I'm self-absorbed. They're indifferent to their empathy. They're self-centered, selfish ego. It's about me and what I need and want. Sluggish, resistant, and desensitized to their conscience, right? So let's cross that twisting zone boundary. You're actively harmonizing with the morals of evil and Satan, and not, you are ignoring the values and morals of God. Well, now you're calculating and crossing those boundaries, aren't you? You're like, you know what? I think I'll back off on pushing buttons about dinner. I think I'm going to wait to push her buttons about this because this thing makes her go over the edge, right? Or in an SRA ceremony or MK Ultra, they are calculating on what to program you with or push your buttons with, strategic in how to do it, and maliciously doing it because they want to steal from you, blemish you, tarnish you, ruin you. They're self-entitled. They have a disregard for you, a disdain and disregard for you. They're self-absorbed, self-promoting. I'm going to do this thing in this ritual or at home with a handler because I get to climb the ladder. And when I do this, and when I make that person go over the edge, and I ruin them, and people see how I ruin them, ooh, I'm gonna get accolades, right? Sliding down that slope. Now we're going to cross the inversion zone, the permanent moral inversion of right and wrong. Their conscience is permanently and gladly overridden because they have done this so much and for so long or gotten so many pats on the back and rewards, right? They are gladly doing these things, gladly being evil, gladly blaspheming God. They have moved into the malevolent and sadistic in crossing boundaries. They want you to suffer as much as possible. They want you to see their evil. They crave and seek evil. They're vindictive and sadistic in their intentions, calculating. Their empathy is minimal or absent. Their self-righteous and justifying ego, and their conscience is petrified, if not fossilized. They believe that being and doing evil is the correct thing to do because they get rewarded for it. And Satan's going to promise them their own planet or that they're going to be a god. Whatever thing that Satan beguiles them with, they're bought into it. And and Satan is the good God, and the God of the Bible is the bad guy. An inversion of right and wrong. It's the same thing that's happening in society. The inversion of sexuality, male and female relationships. Well, let's invert it and twist it and contort it. And no, men with men, women with women, and let's add bestiality and let's add pedophilia. Let's invert what God created in terms of sexuality. Or let's invert anything that God created. That's Satan's purpose. The inversion of permanent moral inversion of right and wrong. So let's go to the next category, stages of objectification. Up at the top in the blue, your conscience is active, tender, sensitive. You're humble. You have compassion for other people. Um, Remorse, regret. If you've done something wrong, your intentions. If you've harmed someone, you're unaware of it. It was unintentional. You self-correct with your ego. Your goals are to fulfill God's will, to empower others, not to hurt others, to treat others as you want to be treated. You're loving and thoughtful with boundaries. And if you're busy, if you're distracted or preoccupied, and you inadvertently cross a boundary, you correct it. This is where you stages of objectification. You love people and you use things. Sliding down that slope. Boundaries. You've inadvertently crossed a boundary. Hurt people, hurt people. This is where I perceive that a survivor of abuse would get triggered and hurt back. Hurt people, hurt people. And once that survivor does some healing work, or people sit down with them gently and lovingly and say, look, you've got a misconception going on here. You can't do this. And that person is taught how to self-correct, how to be thoughtful, not to be rude, thoughtless, but they've inadvertently hurt someone and they're, oh my gosh, they have remorse and regret. They have compassion that they hurt someone else. They're self-correcting. Their conscience is receptive, responsive, sensitive, tender, active. It's moving up the slope when you're healing because we were taught to slide down the slope through satanic ritual abuse. But our healing is climbing back up that slope and correcting the errors and lies that we were told and taught, indoctrinated with. So you go from stages of objectification, love people and use things, hurt people, hurt people. You slide down that slope. Now you're careless, thoughtless, rude, preoccupied. Selfish people wound people. This is where, you know what? I don't care if I'm rude to you. I'm so busy, I don't have time for anything else. I'm not going to correct my behavior. So if you're wounded, you know what? I don't really care because I'm more worried. about my busy schedule and what I have to do. Selfish people wound people. Sliding down that slope. Now we've crossed the danger zone. You're comfortable and acclimating to the violation of your conscience. You have moral compromise and suppression of the truth. The truth is you are rude and you need to correct your behavior, but no, you don't care anymore. You've crossed that. Now you're going to love things and use people. You purposefully and willfully cross boundaries. Your goals are self satisfaction to manipulate and deceive. Your intentions are self absorbed and self indulgent. You're indifferent to your empathy. Your ego is selfish and self centered. Your conscience is sluggish, resistant, and desensitized. You're going to love things and use people. You want to climb the ladder. You want to make more money at work. So I don't care if I have to walk on people to get there. Purposeful and willful. And in a satanic ritual, these perpetrators, way beyond this level down the slope, but they are purposeful and willful. They want what they want, and they willfully go after it, which is the evil thing that they want: the money, the power, the control, or the just the pleasure from seeing someone else suffer. So let's slide down that slope. From love things and use people, now we have evil people harm people because they've crossed the twisting. They've actively harmonized with evil, harmonized with the morals of evil and Satan. They've harmonized with their familiar spirits. They've harmonized with the demons or spirits that are in these rituals. They've harmonized with it. Even the MK Ultra programmers have harmonized with evil because they're torturing someone to program their mind, to create splits and program someone to control them. Evil people harm people. And sliding down that slope, I know it's not quite, I didn't have room to put, but human sacrifice. You have crossed the point of no return, the inversion zone, the permanent moral inversion of right and wrong. Your conscience is permanently and gladly overridden. You are happy and thrilled to kill that illegal alien 3-year-old that you stole or bought from a trafficking ring so you can put them in an SRA ritual and slaughter them to get their blood or flesh or whatever brownie points from Satan, and you're going to climb the ladder. This is where human sacrifice comes in. Your approaches to boundaries, you are malevolent and sadistic. Your goals are to impact, harm, damage, or destroy someone. Your intentions are calculating, forethought, vindictive, sadistic. You crave and seek evil. Your empathy is that of self-interest or absent. Your ego, you're entitled, you're self-aggrandizing, you're self-righteous, and you justify what you do. And your conscience, you have gone through that alchemical change, the point of no return. You are forever changed. You are evil. You reprobate. That's what reprobate means. You have changed alchemically. Your heart, your mind, your soul. Your conscience is, it's it's inverted at the reprobate level, but by the time you get down to fossilized, your conscience is just happily and permanently and gladly overridden because your conscience is God talking to you. And a Satanist does not want to hear God scold them or correct them because they are God. They know what's best. They need to kill that baby to climb the ranks so that they can become a God themselves or get money, get power, get whatever. So now that you understand the categories, we'll go back here for a minute and look at this. The levels of boundary crossing. For me, once I put this together, I realized how many people in my childhood and life were pigs and dogs, right? Reasonable relationship, normal and healthy. Unreasonable relation, narcissist, pigs and dogs in the danger zone. Toxic relationship, sociopath, the twisting zone. Dangerous and life-threatening, psychopath, sadistic predators, or possessed humans, the inversion zone. How many people in my life? And I realized I had a couple of friends. One's an SRA survivor, one is not. I thought that these two people were my friends. Really, truly. I thought they had compassion for me, empathy, cared for my well being in the same way that I did for them. To realize, no, I was putting my pearls before swine. What are your pearls? Your time, your effort, your energy, and your resources. I realized that these two people that I thought were friends, they came at me in two different ways. The one friend who's not an SRA survivor wanted my time, effort, energy, and money donations to help her out. Oh, poor, pitiful Melissa. She doesn't have any money. Oh my God. And I'm thinking she's work doing God's will and all that. So I'm providing her with anything, everything she needs to survive and succeed, right? Come to find out, she didn't care what I was going through. She didn't give a darn if I was busy doing my healing work. She undermined my therapy. She tried to sabotage my path into Christianity, lied to me, deceived me. Well, let's take a look at that chart and graph, right? Where is that? Here, I made this little box. So copy, and I'll move it up here. Paste. I came to discover that this friend of mine, her empathy for me was minimal at best, indifferent a lot of the times. Her ego was all about what she needed and wanted, right? And she felt justified in what she was doing. Her intentions were to get what she wanted. I'm up here having compassion for her, feeling sorry for her that she was left in this situation, which I realized was a lie, right? Over here, manipulating and deceiving me, telling me these things that are not biblical to degrade me, and crossing my boundaries. So, this person I realized was in this zone here. I'm thinking I'm operating from this zone here, right? I'm going to make this a little bit shorter. I'm operating in this zone here, but she's using my good heart, my generosity, love people and use things. I'm loving people and buying things for her to. Well, she's perfectly happy to have those things because she's all about loving things and using people because she's down here. That was my non-SRA friend. My ex-SRA friend was a different approach. She pretended to be so traumatized and so hurt, you know, oh my gosh, Titus, I'm up here having incredible compassion and empathy for her. I'm putting my work to the side to spend time with her, literally 30 to 40 hours a week talking with her because she's just so triggered and so hurt to realize no. She is manipulating me, deceiving me. She's absorbed in what she needs and wants. She lives on disability, so I'm donating to her monthly, thinking, oh, well, I don't really tithe to a church. And I talked to my husband. I said, well, would you be okay if I gave her money every month? because she's on disability. My husband's like, no. And he gave a biblical quote about, God, don't let me be rich so that I become arrogant, and don't let me be poor so I steal. I forget what that quote is out of the Bible, but so we're operating up here, being compassionate and empathy and trying to empower someone else and being thoughtful. And she's down here going, wow. I can get money out of them. I can, the more I pretend to be Trump, oh, Diana, there's a storm going on and I'm driving. Will you keep me company because the storm is triggering me? And I would, because I had compassion for her. I was worried about her. Or, or, I bought her a TED. Those are $450 after tax because she didn't have the money for it. First, I bought her a big stuffed animal and a plastic bat. Well, it hurt her arm too much to hit that. We got to be better friends, I thought. And so I buy her a TED, thinking, okay, well, maybe it's that downward motion that's not working, right? Or she can't hit her TED Talk. But then she would tell me about going out to garden and digging grass up, grass, 2 to 3, 4 inches of dirt, a 12 to 16 foot long piece of ground, 4 feet wide, goes outside and spends 8 hours doing that. Or on another occasion, it got a carpet cleaner that is handheld, so it's on her hands and knees cleaning her carpet for 2 or 3 or 4 days, hours and hours at a time. She can do that, right? But she can't do more than 30 seconds on TED because it hurts her shoulder. Deceiving me. And I'm thinking she's telling me the truth because I'm operating up here. And she's operating down here. Manipulate and deceive me. Was she stealing from me? No. But she's certainly taking money and purposefully and willfully crossing boundaries. She's being strategic about what she whines about and is victim. She's just incredible victimized mentality, but she's completely absorbed in her victimization. Talking about I can't sleep because there's a storm. We'll figure it out. I can't count how many survivors. You can walk into a satanic ritual and you can't handle a storm passing by. Total victim mentality. Gosh darn it. So you're going to notice, pay attention because I was operating up here, wanting to help these two people, empower them, empowerment of others, being thoughtful of what they needed, compassionate for what they're going through. And they're down here going, wow, look at that. She'll send me money. She'll send me stuff. I'm entitled to it because I was victimized. Or my other non-SRA, she's just entitled because she was married to someone that I thought that I respected. All the while I'm being manipulated and deceived. I came to understand, let me put this to the side. I came to understand that both of these two people I thought were my friends were loving things and using people. They were using me. And both of them were evil because they harmed me. The SRA survivor physically put me in danger and harmed me physically, emotionally, and mentally. The other friend who's not an SRA survivor harmed me emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, trying to tell me that doing porn with your partner is okay, and that it's okay to want to achieve godhood and ascension because her boyfriend was just as important as Jesus. She was twisting my mind spiritually. So I wanted to show y'all the importance of that chart with your emotional impact. Figure out how old the part is and what their impact is. Let them see, hey, wow, look at all these other parts. Look at the boundary crossing that happened. And what does that mean when people cross boundaries? Well, it means their conscience is in a certain place. Their ego is in a certain place. Their empathy is in a certain place. And once you go past that twisting zone, I believe up until that twisting zone, God can pull you back and you can correct your behavior. But once you cross that twisting zone, that's the point of no return. And that's where a lot of perpetrators are. You can't get into the river with the Niagara Falls and fool around and slide down that slope. So if there's someone in your life that you can't quite figure out, your mom, your dad, a brother, a sister, this is what happened to me with my dad early on in my sessions with Jon. I just thought my dad was hurt people, that he must have been abused himself, and that's why he abused me, because I didn't remember any of the satanic stuff. When I started remembering the intentional MK Ultra programming, the intentional satanic rituals, and his evil nature, and that he was in the twisting zone, that's when I realized no, I was cutting him slack. My grandma, my grandpa, my dad, my handlers, the military, these two friends of mine, they had crossed into the twisting zone, but I was perceiving that they were to hurt people, hurt people. No, it's intentional. They choose to turn off their conscience. They choose to play around in that current and slide down the slope. And at a certain point, they become twisted. They cannot go back. So if you have someone in your life actively that you think is a friend and you're constantly confused as to why you're the one always putting out the time, the effort, the energy, the money, why they're always knocking you down or questioning you, and you're like what the heck I'm doing? I think I'm doing the right thing here, God. I'm helping you out. I'm doing everything I can. And yet, still, you're the problem. If you've got someone like that in your life, use this chart, use this graph. I'll put it on my website. Figure out where they're at. Because if they don't care what you're going through or have a disdain for you, they also don't care about you. They're using you, being deceptive and manipulating you. You cannot be in the blue zone and the red zone at the same time. You are at a certain level on that slope. You cannot be seek evil and also have compassion. It just doesn't work. The conscience, ignoring, as goes conscience, so goes your ego, your empathy, your intentions, how your boundary crossing and your objectification of people, as goes your conscience. You cannot know where anyone's conscience ever is, but you can know what kind of an ego do they have? Where's their empathy? How do they how do they treat goals and boundaries? That's how you can identify them. And once you figure it out, you have got to cut ties with them. No matter what you're getting from them or safety you think you might need from them, You are in danger and you have been fooled. So please take the time, look at these charts and graphs, and get yourself to safety, which I mean, cut these people out of your life, block them. You don't have to explain anything to them. If you're living with someone that's going to be tricky, you're going to have to figure out how to find safety. But if you're okay, you're on your own, or your spouse is fine and safe, but you've got family around you, or handlers, or friends, or coworkers, stop interacting with them. You don't have to explain yourself or justify anything. All you have to do is block them, ghost them, and you don't have to feel bad about it. And that's the last thing I'll say here. Perpetrators and people who are in the twisted zone and the inversion zone, they know how the conscience works because they had one at one time. Maybe when they were a baby, kid, high school, whatever. But they know that it's there and that it exists in us. And they know that they have turned theirs off. And then they're getting some sort of payout from Satan or money or their boss or whatever. They're getting a payoff for ignoring their conscience. So they know that we have a conscience and that we do feel bad and that we do have remorse. And they will play on that. That's a part of their game. Is they know that you will hold yourself accountable. And so they're just, well, how come you ghosted me? How come this? How come that? What kind of a biatch are you? You don't have to explain anything. Just turn around and walk away. That's it. If you have to work with someone, maybe transfer to another location. Talk to your boss and say, look, I'm having a hard time here. Find a way to separate from that person. So I have no idea how long this was, but I just wanted you all to have the basics of that. Now, Jon Uhler presented this in videos with Emma, and he will break it down into criminal behavior and how much pornography a person watches and sexual objectification. He's got more categories. So I highly recommend watching that, and I'll put the links in the show notes. It is called, let me pull this up so that y'all can see it. It's on the Imagination podcast. It's called Assessing Degrees of Deviance and Psychopathy in Men Who Commit Sexually Violent Offenses. Very good. When I saw that is when I figured out, wow, my dad's not at a negative. John's spectrum for this goes from left to right, from a 0 normal to -10 sadistic. That's when I first realized my dad's a -10. And I was thinking he was a -3. So I highly recommend watching that. So, oh, is there anything else I can think of I want to put in there? That's a lot to absorb. But I thought it important for y'all to know that, yeah, and these two friends that I had were during my healing process. And cutting them off, understanding this, recognizing it, and cutting them off has freed up my mind even more. That I have more safety because they are out of my life now. And it's freed up even more memories. So that's really what it's going to do for you, is get you to a place of psychological safety, physical safety anyway, emotional and mental, just not interacting with them. But you'll have a level of psychological safety that will help your healing. For me, I think it not accelerates it, but it moves it forward. as long as you have someone in your life that's oppressing you mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, it's going to put, it's going to slow your progress. So I wanted y'all to know that so that you can just take a minute. Someone that maybe you push it out of your mind. Oh no, that person couldn't possibly want to hurt me. That's what I thought. They couldn't possibly. They're my friend. No, they did. It's hard to face, but I would rather be disillusioned and see the truth than to have someone hold back my healing. And if I have no friends at all, that's okay. I'd rather have no friends at all than those kind of friends. And because I've gotten rid of those, I've now drawn to myself friends that are godly and live in the blue zone, you know? So, anyhow, that's it. I will let you go. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions, shoot me an email. I love you all. Take care. Bye.